Shout out Bruce Gas, aka Toka 2. You know I had to drop a track with my boy.
Hey, where you at?
Yeah, I've been here harassing boys out here telling favors. I'm the hardest young nigga, I ain't signed to no label. Hey, Bruce Gas putting them fights on the table. Calling that boxing since Kane versus Abel. Smoking so much gas, you would think that shit was fatal. I'm the people's champion like Muhammad Ali. Shout out Bruce Gas, one day we gon' meet. Yeah, we gon' blow it down, we gon' smoke hella weed. Yeah, we gon' blow it down, take a hit out the Toka 2. Slipping hella shots, feel like Tyson with the peak. Little Glock by my side, but it hit just like Isaac Cruz. Shout out Mad Chad, real shit, that's my fucking dude. We always cooking on the panel. Strapped to my side, I ain't talking about no sandals. Bruce pass me the blunt, I'ma light it like a candle. Ayy, non-stop bars, man, I always spit flames. Feel like Bruce Gas always got a different strain. Bitch, you ain't like me, you can never feel my pain. You win and you lose, well, this a fight game. Don't beef on the net and the shit won't change. Said that on the stream, gotta do it for the game. Said that on the stream, gotta do it for the chat. I ain't undisputed, yeah, hold on, I ain't undisputed, but I want all the straps.
Okay, man. This is Bruce Gas here with you, man. Bruce Gas, boxing, jazz, and more. And man, I am honored. I am honored to have my next guest. You know, this is the first my first foray into boxing. I was a wrestling fan as a 10-year-old. I was a professional wrestling fan, watching Bruno Sammartino and Gorilla Monsoon and Haystacks Calhoun and Killer Kowalski. And I stepped into this old store, and they had hundreds of magazines on a table. They were 10 cents each, and I was looking for wrestling magazines, and I saw The Ring, boxing and wrestling. I said, man, let me grab this. Like I said, I'm 10 years old, very impressionable, and I read the wrestling, and then I started reading about the boxing. I'm seeing the blood, and I'm just reading about it, and it was like an introduction to me. But anyway, man, this is not about me. This is the editor-in-chief of Ring Magazine, man. This weekend there was no boxing on. I was trolling through the YouTube, man, and I found the Ring Magazine Awards, and it was on Saturday afternoon from England. And man, this was better than a live fight. This was fantastic.
Really? Did you watch the whole thing? It was 3 hours.
I watched it a couple of times, brother.
Oh, get out of here! That's awesome.
And that, hey, it's a pleasure to meet you, brother. It really is.
Pleasure as well. Yeah. I mean, I've followed you for a while, so
well,
it's about time.
I'm minor league compared to you, my brother.
No. It's my fault. I haven't been on here sooner, as a matter of fact. So, I'm glad I'm finally sharing this space with you.
Well, I'll tell you, man. Ring Magazine, you know, it almost faded into the background in the early part of the century.
Mm-hmm.
You know, print media. You know, I walk all the time, and I used to see every house had a Providence Journal in front of their doorstep. Now maybe one or two out of 100 houses. So first of all, man, I'm like a little kid over here. Yeah, why don't you take over and tell us a little bit about Ring Magazine? Because there's a bunch of people coming in, man. You know,
it's the oldest American boxing publication. There's only one boxing magazine that's older, that's still in existence, and that's England's Boxing News. So as far as the U.S. boxing scene goes, this is the grand old man. This is the venerable old publication that chronicles the sport. And it's kind of amazing when you think about it, because it was founded in 1922. And you go back that far. I mean, just like put in like automobiles in 1922 or film in 1922 and see what that stuff looked like at the time. You know what I mean? It was like, it was a time before even every household had a radio. Like even radios were still kind of new in terms of being commonplace and in everybody's house. So it started out when print media was really the dominant media, even at a time when like probably literacy in the United States, you know, obviously wasn't to where it is now, or to where it would be. But people still bought the paper. If nothing else, they were looking at the cartoons, the editorial cartoons, and cartoons about sports and boxing in particular were very, very popular from like the late 1800s and up into the turn of the 20th century and the first 2 decades of the 20th century, when you had these, you had, of course, the bare knuckle fighters like John L. Sullivan and his peers, but going into the first legends of the gloved age. I should mention that John L. Sullivan was the bare knuckle heavyweight champ and the gloved heavyweight champ. But, guys like Bob Fitzsimmons and later on, the lightweight champion Joe Gans, and of course Jack Johnson and all those fighters, Abe Attell, and they captured the imagination of the public at a time when the sport wasn't even legal in every state. It was a renegade sport, and I think Nat Fleischer, the founder of Ring Magazine, I think he really saw the potential in the sport, and once it began to be legalized, especially in the U.S. Northeast, and legalized in the state of New York and the state of New Jersey and elsewhere, state of Massachusetts. He wanted to keep it that way, and he really he wanted to start this magazine to not only chronicle the sport, but to keep everybody honest. And that's why he began to award a Ring Magazine championship belt, because they had been championship titles prior to that. And a lot of times it would just, a fighter himself would take it upon himself to declare like, hey, I'm the champion. I'm the heavyweight champion because I've kicked enough ass, or I'm popular, or whatever. And there would be folks that would dispute it in other jurisdictions or other parts of the world. And then there were publications that would also recognize champions in various weight classes. The Police Gazette would do that. And the Police Gazette predates Ring Magazine. And but they were funny with it. If they had a falling out, well, they yanked that title. And it didn't seem like the title was there to be won and lost in the ring. And that was Fleischer's whole thing, is wanted championships to be decided in the ring and not in the back rooms, to be decided by the fighters and not by the promoters or not by the gamblers, and not by any sort of devious means or whatever. So that was really sort of his inspiration, along with the success of Jack Dempsey and Tex Rickard. And I believe it was Tex Rickard that suggested to Nat that, hey, you should do this. You should start a boxing publication, and I'll help you. I'll help fund it and get it off its feet. And but I think it wasn't just the Ring Magazine and Nat Fleischer that saw the potential, the economic potential in boxing as a legal sport, but it always had been popular as a renegade sport, as something that was kind of secret underground, like in the sports clubs, or in like sort of like unsanctioned areas, you know what I mean, away from the eyes of the cops or whatever, because of the popularity of Dempsey. He was like a modern superstar. Nobody came close to Dempsey other than maybe Babe Ruth, maybe, but I think that the 20s, the Roaring 20s, if they're defined by one sports figure or by one celebrity, I'd say it's Jack Dempsey over Babe Ruth, or even, a great athlete like Jim Thorpe, right? Mm-hmm. Legendary. And he was putting, like, never mind butts in the seats, folks standing, and Tex Rickard was building these, he owned a lumber company, and he would build these overnight stadiums.
Go in the field, cut the trees down, split them.
Exactly.
The old man used to get
Boyles Acres, New Jersey, or whatever, and he was, so those fights with Jess Willard and then later on Louis Firpo, and later on Patrick Charpentier, and later on Gene Tunney. They did $1 million gates back when. $1 million. $1 million today is something, but back then, forget about it. Like, that was crazy money. When states saw that, they're like, oh, wait, we tax that? Okay, yeah, we're definitely going to legalize boxing. And, Fleischer saw that, and he saw, like, the wave of popularity. And it wasn't just Jack Dempsey in the 20s. You had Mickey Walker, and you had Harry Greb, and you had, popular fighters like Mike McTeague. And so it was strong. Tiger Flowers, you had a lot of badasses fighting a lot, and they were exciting fighters. They all, Gene Tunney is also, before he went to heavyweight as a light heavyweight, Tunney's multi-fight series with Harry Greb. All these fights, Harry Greb versus Mickey Walker, all these fights captured the imagination of the American public, and the sport grew, and it was smart. He kind of got.
Did they have any ranking organizations back then?
No. That's something that really the Ring magazine sort of popularized, or really kind of introduced to the public, was the concept of contenders. People knew who the champions were, but who was the most worthy challenger? Who were the best fighters in those specific weight classes? That was Ring magazine. And they started doing that just maybe a couple of years after they were founded in 22. So 1922, they get started. Dempsey's already heavyweight champion. He'd been heavyweight champion for like 3 years because he beat Dempsey in 1919. Mm-hmm. So they award him. He's the first Ring magazine champion in the heavyweight division. And then I think the next year it was Pancho Villa, a flyweight champion from the Philippines, super popular. And then after that, it was like, whoever, Mickey Walker, Harry Greb, Mike McTeague, all these guys, all these fighters. As the sport grew, the magazine grew right along with it. And they really, I think it was exponential growth throughout, some tough decades, like the 1930s. You got the Great Depression. And at the start of the 40s, the first half of the 40s, you got World War II, but that didn't hurt sales. It actually kind of made it more popular. Yeah.
And this is the only boxing news around. I mean, there was no ESPN.
Yeah.
Absolutely no internet. Even newspapers. You're lucky if you got a little.
Yeah. Well, the newspapers was just the immediate news. It was the fight report. It was a deadline story. And every now and then, if somebody was popular enough, there was going to be a feature, maybe a human interest angle on them leading up to the fight, and them and their opponent or whatever. But there wasn't a lot of in-depth post-fight analysis. And if you're a fan, you want that.
The first thing I did, I go to the back and I go state by state. They had the breakdowns, and I'd see fighters from my state, like Vinny Paz when he first started being preliminaries.
Yeah.
And there's no other way you could even hear about these.
That stuff that wasn't on TV. You couldn't, prospects fought in the dark, and preliminary fighters and undercards. All of that was off television. So the only way you could follow an up and comer, and this is true all the way up into the 90s, is to read about it in the boxing publications. And if you were lucky, if you were in like a fight town. If you were in a city like New York City, or later on in later decades, the original fight cities, like on the East Coast of Boston, and it's New Jersey, Chicago, Midwest, Detroit.
Sorry, man.
What was that? Yeah, those, yeah, and so the states with those cities. Those cities were in states that formed the first association that also awarded titles, and that's the NBA, the National Boxing Association. And that was a collection of all the powerful commissions, with the exception of the New York State Commission, because they were so strong. They were like, no, we don't need you. We're going to host fights because we have Madison Square Garden. We've got the Polo Grounds. We have Yankee Stadium. You know what I mean? We don't need to be a part of some association, but the others did. And it was like, let's spread the wealth around. Like all the championships aren't going to just take place in one city or one jurisdiction. They'll bounce around, Boston and Chicago and Detroit and Jersey City and wherever else, and those were it was Ring Magazine and it was the NBA that were handing out the recognized world titles. Ring Magazine went from awarding titles starting in 22, I think in 24 or 25 started providing rankings, and then in 1928 they began to award the Fighter of the Year.
Awesome. Let me shout out some of these cats that are in here watching us.
Yeah, please do.
If it wasn't for them, me and you would be talking on the keyboards at each other. But I'm really appreciative of these cats that come in here, man.
Yeah.
Let's see. And there's quite a few of them in here now, man. Sam was in here originally. My brother Rolling with the Punches. Christopher from Ireland, man. Shout out to you, bro. Let me see who else. 86 Boxing, man. A true historian out there. Let's see, man. Who else is in here? The Bud Files, appreciate you coming in here. Little Holmes, appreciate it, man. The Drunk Irishman, thanks for stopping by, bro. Let me audit you, bro. Appreciate it, man. Then they're all shouting you out too, Dougie. Pinch, man. Shout out to you, man. Let's see, anybody else come in here? Mad Chad from the Tavern, thank you, brother. Clarence McLean, shout out to my brother Clarence. And John McSmith is in here. And hey, all right, man. Let's get back into the meat and the potatoes of this. Now, when were people like saying that? I know the Ring Magazine. A lot of people say it's not a legit belt, and man, I'm saying, well, are you out of your freaking mind? It's the only legit belt out there. I mean, this belt was built.
Listen, we're the only belt that's about the sport. You don't have to agree with our rankings, but we're not ranking guys because anybody's giving us money. The Ring, first of all, they're international. They're not just a bunch of guys from like one part of the U.S. We're talking about more than 16, 17 individuals. They all have followed boxing. They all are entrenched in their respective boxing scenes. They represent 8 or 9 different countries, different parts of the world. And like I say, I don't agree with everything. We're democratic. It's by vote. And sometimes I disagree. Sometimes my vote, I'm in the minority. And, but I respect it because these people, they're volunteering their time. They're not paid for it. They're not employees of the magazine. They do it for the love of the sport. And fighters move up or they drop on their merit, on their performances in the ring. And it's not just about wins and losses, because you can win and look like shit. You know what I mean?
Now,
you can be like, you know what I'm saying? And you can lose. I'll give you an example.
All right.
Tevin Farmer has lost his last 2 fights. Well, who did he fight? A young undefeated gun in Raymond Muratalla, or Taya. And then another undefeated young gun from Mexico, William Zepeda. And he gave them both hell. And he arguably won both fights, but he got an L. So on paper, he's 0-2 in his last 2 fights. But we see with our own eyes how good he is. We see the hell that he gave these young guns. He's in our rankings. He's number 9 or 10. He's not high in the rankings because he had been off, he had been retired or taken a break or whatever, and he used to campaign at 130. But as soon as he moved up to 135, he was looking for the smoke. And we respect that. And we're not looking, it's not just about W's and L's. We're looking at his performance. And then you got a guy super talented, Teofimo Lopez, a former Unified Ring Magazine lightweight champion, the current Ring Magazine junior welterweight champion, also has the WBO belt. And he was brilliant when he won those titles against Josh Taylor. And then he fought probably a guy you're familiar with, Jermaine Ortiz.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, by the way, he's talented. He's a real talented guy, underrated. So it's not like we penalized him for that, but he didn't, he maybe arguably lost that fight, and then he fought Steve Claggett, tough cat. I've followed Steve Claggett's career for a long time. I've called a few of his fights. That's not a guy you just knock out, right? I knew he would go the distance, but kind of a basic come forward guy, kind of flat footed. Lopez got the job done, but he didn't shine. He didn't look like an elite fighter. So he dropped out of our pound for pound top 10. And I know he was salty about that.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
It's about your performance. That's what we're looking at. And you don't move up in our rankings because you hold some kind of minor title. It's not like the sanctioning bodies where you could be like a prospect and unproven. And if your promoter wants to put up the money to have a Continental America's belt or an international title or an America's title or whatever, a youth title in a particular sanctioning organization, you pay money for them to sanction that. They get money from the fighter, they get money from the promoter. They're getting paid all kinds. They're sending out invoices like crazy.
They get money from the fighter, they get money from the promoter.
Yeah, the person who's there holding the belt, at the weigh-in and all that, that's the inspector. They get paid. The promoter will fly them in if they're from out of town, put them up. It costs money, and that's how you move up. Though you get these minor belts, defend them a few times, and it's pay to play basically.
Well,
So
man,
I don't say, you're not legitimate. I'm like, we don't charge anybody. We're not in this as a business. Maybe we sell the magazine.
That event on Saturday. If I can just get a word in here, man. That event on Saturday, that thing you had, I can't even imagine the money that must have spent to bring all those cats in there. I mean, bro, I'm saying he must get 10 grand. He's got to get 20 grand. I mean, that's not even counting the hotel fees.
Starting. Those are just appearance fees. Yeah.
Let me shout out my brother, Mr. Boxing Today, too, man. Shout out to you, man. My hometown man, Romeo Lombardi from Warren, Rhode Island, man. Shout out to him, man. Cosmic One came in here. And Umar Marvin McDowell from Facebook. My brother, we do the old G show on Sunday night, man. Marvin, a former fighter. Shout out to him. The Beak, shout out to you, bro, from Algeria. Thank you for stopping by. And Andy Heinrich, my man. Salute to you, bro. Thank you for stopping by, man. Let's go back to England over here with all these cats. And I know, you had like the. I'm not even gonna call them the Four Kings, but they used that term loosely with the lightweights a few years ago. With Tio and Romo. But anyway, you had them on as presenters for the awards banquet, and they didn't look very comfortable up there. They were only getting like polite applause, and they looked kind of out of place. What was that all about? Where you had Shakur introducing the
well, they wanted the fighters to announce the winners. It's about the fighters. The awards are about the fighters, so that was the concept with that. But it's not easy being on that stage. I mean, I was nervous. I had to speak, and I was nervous going out there. I was definitely, they had a relaunch celebration in Riyadh a couple days before the big heavyweight championship rematch. And that was different. That was also, it was big, a lot of luminaries, a lot of former champions, a lot of current champions, a lot of Hall of Famers. But it was like more modern. It's kind of like neon signs of the ring logo, and just the vibe was kind of more of like a party. And I went up there and probably stayed on stage a little bit too long, but I just felt I just felt like I was talking to a room of my friends. But in London, we were in Greenwich, and it was it's like a campus ground. It's a college campus ground, super old, and we were in the old Naval College, the old Royal Navy College. And it looks like something. It's like it was like a combination of the Sistine Chapel, with the painted ceiling, right? Gigantic columns like ancient Rome. And it's different. I was like, whoa! I got on stage and they told me, "Hey, Doug, don't be up there for 10 minutes. Like you have no more than 5 minutes." And I kept it to exactly like 5 minutes, maybe a few seconds over. But I'm staring out, and it was different. It was like, wow, I kind of felt the weight of it. It was kind of dark in there. But it was kind of like, it was classier. You saw tuxedos. People weren't just dressed up. You saw a lot of tuxedos and formal gowns, with the women. And it was a different vibe, and I don't think a lot of these young guys are used to that. I mean, this is new. I mean, we've been, like I said, the Ring Magazine has been giving out awards since 1928, but they usually just give them out like whenever they can, you know.
You kind of made it like a contest too, where the Tio would get up there and he'd say, the knockout of the year, and he'd go through names, and we'd all put our kind of vote in there, and the winner, just like the Oscars, it was like the Oscars.
Yeah, it was. It was supposed to be that way.
How much?
I do think those guys were. It was. They. I mean, some of them were okay with it, but like I could tell they were like, oh shit. Because I mean, I don't think they've ever experienced that. They're used to being.
Not to mention, just the people in the audience watching you, man. You had boxing royalty in there.
Roberto Duran.
If Roberto's there, the fucking thing is important. And this Turkey Al Sheik, is he like just throwing everything into this? Is he like so psyched on this? Is he like he kept me on.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure it was going to happen. I wasn't sure if you were going to still be the editor in chief because I spoke to you.
Yeah,
but it almost looks like nothing's changed internally. But he wants to make this huge. He wants to make
all in.
Everybody wants a Ring Magazine T-shirt, like sweatshirt, like you're wearing now, bro. And
I hope. This is old. Yeah, because the new logos, it looks the same, but it's a little bit different. But yeah, hopefully we won't have to wait too long before the online shop is active, and that we have some merchandise, because I know a lot of people want to buy it. And I mean, listen, for me, it's like a dream come true to see that many champions and Hall of Famers and boxing industry luminaries under the same roof, getting along, working together, and all under the banner of the ring. Now, I mean, I'm not going to lie to myself. I know a lot of people are there because of His Excellency. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I want to be a part of this. So I totally get that. But it's still the ring. It's the Ring Awards. Those awards were decided by the Ring Magazine panel, and it's just a good look for the publication, for the brand. And it just sends a great message out there to the world, the boxing fans around the world, seeing all of these great fighters or future greats. And I think Alexander Usyk, he's going to go down as a future great. You know what I mean? I don't know what the future holds, but just what he's done in 23 professional fights, and certainly if you tack on his amateur career and the Olympic gold medal, like what a special talent this guy is. Just the fact that he was up on stage 3 times getting these awards, that he was the fighter of the year for the second time, because he was fighter of the year in 2018 after winning the cruiserweight tournament, the World Boxing Classic, I think they called it, with the Muhammad Ali trophy. And he unified, he was undisputed cruiserweight champion. So second time, and this time as a heavyweight, and just the run he's had at heavyweight with the 2 wins over Joshua and the 2 wins over Fury. He's a real special talent. So just for him to be, there and kind of the center of this attention, and the undisputed flyweight female champion, Gabriela Fundora.
Yeah, that was so cool. I was so glad that they didn't have Fighter of the Year. I was so glad that they had the women's Fighter of the Year and the male Fighter of the Year. Mm-hmm. And Gabrielle, man, she's been looking great in the ring, but she looked hot walking up there with that gown on, and I mean, it brought a lot of class to the event. And I mean, my only objection is you got to get my brother Tim Witherspoon on there, man. He missed that one. He earned his hand, and he feels like Tank. He wasn't invited, so you gotta invite him.
No, Tim would be great. I'd love to interview him, because they have all these guys there, so they do like round the clock like podcast interviews. Mm-hmm. So while I was there in Riyadh before the relaunch, I interviewed Igis Klimas, the manager of Usyk, and a bunch of others. I interviewed Bob Arum, which was awesome. I interviewed Roberto Duran, which was an honor, obviously, and a real thrill. And at this time in London, I interviewed Gabriela Fundora, who was wonderful. Virgil Ortiz Jr. I go way back with him. I called a lot of his early fights. Shakur Stevenson, who was really good. Devin Haney. and Teofimo Lopez, who was he was kind of crazy, but it was fun. We had a lot of fun, you know.
He had a cool look for the weekend with that hat on, the glasses.
You know what? I told him I didn't recognize him, by the way. I'm like, who the hell is that? And then it hit me because he had the ring belt, and I'm like, who else would do that? Yeah, Teo would do that. So I was like, but yeah, with the hat. You remember Father Guido Sarducci from Saturday Night Live?
Yeah.
I was like, who's Father Guido over there? I'm like, oh no, that's Teo, Father Teo. But no, he had the right attitude. He was having a good time, and he was living in the moment, and you like to see that. And
that was just a true
lot of business going on. It wasn't like all those fighters were there for the awards, but they were also there because on Monday they had the press conference for the February 22nd card, which is massive, which is just I'm really excited about that. Yeah. And then and then they're meeting with His Excellency, and they're making fights. There's a bunch of fights, and from what I've been told, like these fights, they're not all going to be in Riyadh. They're going to be in the United States and in the UK. So all these folks are complaining like, oh, it's terrible. All the big fights are going to Riyadh. I'm like, no. He's going to be bringing action back to the United States, and we need it.
Oh man, I can't come.
It ain't his fault that there hasn't been action in the United States. These promoters and these networks have not been working together nearly enough. These young talents, and they are very talented, and I'll never question their talent. But the young U.S. talents, with the exception of Bam Rodriguez, they don't fight enough, and they don't fight each other, and they're not out there looking to take down the legends in their divisions. So,
and is this what's making them fight each other?
Oh, of course. No, they got to get. They want the money now. And here's what they don't understand is like these guys who are legendary, from my boyhood idol, Sugar Ray Leonard, up to Floyd Mayweather, they made big money, but on their way up as prospects, and they weren't prospects for very long because they were fighting often, and maybe like a year or two after they turned pro, they were world champions, and then they started making money. Especially Sugar Ray Leonard, because he fought in a different era where you're an Olympic champion, you're a household name. You know what I mean? Because I remember that.
Oh, I grew up there myself. Shout out to my sister Linda Platt from Facebook, man, the first lady of boxing.
Yeah. But Mayweather wasn't making big purses until really we went up to maybe until like he was at 140, and then he started making like the 7-figure paydays, and that's because of HBO. At the time his popularity didn't really merit it, but he did eventually make like record-making money, but he did that as a pay-per-view attraction, and he was getting the buys that justified it. And this is like 15 years into his career, you know what I mean? And but these guys want it like, they want it now. They want the big money, the record purses when they're 23, 24, 25. And it's like, you got to rumble a little bit more. You got to create your own legend. And there's this hesitation. And that's why there isn't. I mean, that's why if you ask about the event of the year for America for 2024, it was Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. Nothing came close to that in America. Now there were some huge events in Japan, huge events in Tokyo. I know there was a huge event in London when Daniel Dubois fought Anthony Joshua. I was there in September, and they had 96 to 98,000 people in a stadium. When did that happen in America?
It was definitely the anticipation of Mike Tyson and Jake Paul's fanboys, whatever they are. But it wasn't real boxing.
Yeah. It wasn't
a boxing event. But
it was the biggest event in the U.S. The biggest quote unquote boxing event. Was the main event real boxing? No, it wasn't. The undercard wasn't bad because of that rematch between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, and I liked the Mario Barrios fight. That was a WBC welterweight title bout. I was glad that casual fans who tuned in early got to see those real fights. And I think it was good for Netflix to get, dip their toe into boxing because I think Netflix is the closest thing we have to what the networks used to be in the 70s and 80s because of the the number of households that it's in, not just domestically but internationally. But I think it's sad that that's the American fight. That's the U.S. event between two Americans that everybody was talking about. Everybody that I knew who was a casual fan or not even a boxing fan was asking me about all last year. It was all about Jake Paul and Mike Tyson.
Oh, you just reminded me. Speaking of boxing legends, it's Roy Jones's birthday today, man. 56 years. So, shout out to another guy who's probably itching to get back in the ring with Jake Paul. Nothing that we want to see. And
no, I don't want to see that.
Now you vote for you have a vote in the Hall of Fame, don't you, Doug?
Yeah. If you're a member of a full member of the Boxing Writers Association of America, you vote with the International Boxing Hall of Fame.
Man, I've never been to the Hall of Fame. I want to go this year.
What? Yeah, you should go. We'll be the Philippines. The Philippines coming out because Manny Pacquiao's being inducted.
And my homeboy Vinny Paz is in there too, man. And
that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Vinny will make it fun. I'm going. I'm decided I'm going.
Mad Chad in the audience, bro, and he's got to come and pick me up and drive me up there. But if he does it, I'm there, man. And I'm so looking forward to it. Now I know that like the Hall of Fame, a lot of people really complain about the judges and the balloting. Now that's a big gripe. Fighters like Marlon Starling should be there.
Right. Marlon's not on the ballot, right?
I don't think he is anymore. I don't know, but I know he's been overlooked. And the old cats too, the Shavers and the Corys.
Yeah.
Do these cats understand that these writers, not mentioning yourself, that they realize that boxing didn't happen after Floyd Mayweather? That there was
Yeah, I think that's the problem. Is there's an old guard that used to be active members, but once they retired or were retired because their newspapers went out of business, and a lot of them took severance pays, and then they're either retired or they're semi-retired. And I think about that old guard like Bernard Fernandez and Wally Matthews and the late George Kimball and Rod Borges and so many others. Yeah, I mean, they're not. I mean, maybe they're still members, on paper or whatever, but maybe they're not because why pay dues if you're not even writing about boxing anymore? So as they have passed on or they've retired, that's a certain perspective that's just cut off. Like these names that they knew about when they were young, or that they had the privilege of covering, the careers. Those guys are gone. So who is it? Who is voting? And where they introduced the boxing? Maybe like the old timers for this, the average boxing association member now is like the 90s. That's
there's a couple of cats on YouTube, real historians. I think they should be considered. Because we're in a digital era. We're in the. I mean, you can fight in China.
That's been a debate. It shouldn't just be for the writers. It should be, and they've started to, but they're real. Yeah, they're real. There are some folks who are kind of like old heads that are still involved. I'm not going to name them because I'll get in trouble. That are still involved with the association, and they're real. They don't like that. They just don't see. They don't see anything YouTube related as journalism. They don't think that can. But I think it should be viewed as the same as broadcast journalism was in decades past.
Well, you really have to navigate yourself because there's 99% of us is garbage out here, but there's a couple of gems that know what they're talking about, and I mean, mind blowing. That it'd be a shame that they didn't get more recognition than just being.
Who do you like? Who do you follow that I might not know about?
There's a cat named Scrapbook Boxing. He's one of the best.
Okay.
Blood Boxing, one of the best. Mr. Boxing Today, who was on here a little while ago, he's a little bit retired right now. But there's several that would definitely be worth you listening to. Because boxing is just such a great sport now. And now with all this influx, the Middle Eastern influx, it'd be almost a shame not to introduce some of these cats. But
Yeah.
before I forget, you know what really I used to when I was first digging boxing in the mid '70s, Ring Magazine had a scandal. ABC, Don King, the heavyweight tournament. I love heavyweight boxing. Can you talk about that and fill me in about that?
The scandal?
The scandal. I mean, the government was involved. ABC.
Yeah, well, it was the editor that was in charge of the rankings was on the take by Don King.
The guy who had your.
Yeah, Don King had worked out a tournament because by the mid '70s, a lot of the top fighters were no longer American. You know, the '70s. I mean, we still had Muhammad Ali, but he was beginning to become a show.
He was the only American champion for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's, I mean, you know, which is, I mean, I'm a boxing fan because of Ali. He attracted me to the sport. So for, years as a kid, I was just an Ali fan until the emergence of Sugar Ray Leonard. And then I learned about other weight classes and I see a fighter, a talent in his prime. It didn't hurt that Ray had the same trainer as Ali. You know what I mean? You kind of had that continuity there, kind of connecting them. But Ali was not the exciting athlete that he was, obviously, by like 1976, 1977, and your top guys really in a pound for pound sense was Roberto Duran, Carlos Monzon. You had who's the guy from Colombia, Cervantes, Antonio
Cervantes.
Cervantes, he was excellent. He had a bunch of awesome sub lightweights, from Mexico. Had great bantamweights. Carlos Zanate, right?
Man, Subido Pedrosa and Little Red Lopez.
Yeah.
But it was ABC wanted to build because there were only three networks on back then too. It wasn't like today. And
ABC, CBS, and NBC. And I think Don King was working with ABC on like, we're going to crown American champions. We want to do a tournament of the best fighters in certain divisions, like the glamour divisions, heavyweight and middleweight and all that. And you knew something was up when the group that was supposed to be part of the middleweight division did not include Marvin Hagler because he wasn't a Don King fighter. So you knew something was up, but King sold it to ABC saying, hey, these guys are ring ranked. And then to make sure they were ring ranked, he gave this editor some money. Like, hey, man, make sure that this guy's name appears in there. And then he takes that back. And Alex Walu thought something was kind of strange about that. And he was like a young, up and coming executive, but he also did commentary and he was a boxing fan. He was a boxing geek. And the guy with the, he was like an independent. He had his own little magazine, Flash Gordon. What's his first name?
Randy Gordon?
No, not Randy Gordon, but his nickname was Flash.
Oh.
Randy Gordon was a former editor-in-chief of Ring Magazine in the 80s. Like he and Bert Sugar were a team, and he's being inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame this year, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, he
I think of the guy's name, but his nickname was Flash Gordon, and he had like
I remember about that.
I remember his little publication, and he was calling him out. And I think that Walu and this dude, Walu and Gordon worked together to expose this, and Walu took it to his, the higher ups in ABC, and it was a huge scandal, and that was a black eye.
They had the fight with Johnny Boudreaux. You remember Johnny Boudreaux? That's who Don King favored him, and he fought Scott Ledoux on national TV.
Okay, these are heavyweights. Okay,
2 heavyweights. Scott Ledoux beat him, but they raised Johnny Boudreaux's hand. Johnny Boudreaux got the victory, and Scott went crazy, knocked Howard Cosell's toupee off. I mean, this was so huge. I'm surprised you didn't remember this one.
No.
But this was kind of what exposed the scandal because Scott said, I heard 3 days ago in my camp that Johnny Boudreaux already won this fight according to Don. It just created such an error. But Ring Magazine, everybody said it was going to go after that. That was it. Ring Magazine was.
It almost did. You know what? It almost did. It was on its way out, and there was a group of investors that. I don't know if Bert Sugar put the group of investors together, but he was the guy to kind of like become the face of the magazine. He had a title of like not just editor, but publisher, a publisher editor. And, very charismatic, real fun guy. A guy, he would call out the corruption in a fun way. And he had, Randy Gordon kind of doing the nuts and bolts work of not just an editor in chief, but like a managing editor. And, I think that they kind of brought it back. And they had it like maybe like 79 to about 1985 or so. But then the money ran out. That group of investors, like the money ran out, and then it was on rocky ground. In fact, there were a couple years between like the mid 80s, like 86 to 89, where it wasn't coming out every month. It was like every other month, or almost like there was a year or two there where maybe they only put out 4 or 5 magazines.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
There were so many. There were so many magazines at the time too. We had KO, Boxing Illustrated.
Okay, and the guy behind KO and a couple other boxing magazines, Stanley Weston, he goes way back. He was like a kid, like an understudy to Nat Fleischer, and I think they had a falling out at some point, probably over money or maybe over credit for photographs or articles or whatever. This guy, Stanley Weston, was a genius. He was a photographer. He could write. He could edit. He did a lot of those illustrations of those vintage covers, those vintage ring magazine covers.
He did a ton of those.
Yeah. So he wanted at some point. He had it out for Fleischer, and so he became a competitor. And so he started. He put out his own magazines in the 60s all the way up into the 80s, and starting in 1980 with KO. KO was a real strong competitor because KO was like, it was kind of younger, it was hipper. They had a little bit more fun with the articles, and like the photo captions and all that. They had the poster of the fighters. They had those real in-depth Q&As, where you see the pictures of the fighters like talking with their hands and, and I remember I used to prefer KO thing. Ring was kind of stuffy compared to KO magazine, but the Ring was on such wobbly legs going into the late 80s. It was ready to be scooped up, and Stanley Weston did that. And so once he bought the Ring, they merged. So, and that was a great time because they were sister publications. You had Ring magazine, you had the old the flagship, so to speak, and then you had like the new publication for the new generation, which I think I kind of represented because I was reading KO magazine in high school and college, and then they had a few others. They had like boxing, it's just called Boxing, and then whatever the year was. So
World Boxing,
and then World Boxing. That's right, yeah. And those were great. I bought them all.
Bro, I had the lady at the magazine store. She'd call me up when I came in. But then I noticed, like, as we got into the mid '90s, you couldn't find them anymore.
Yeah.
The little magazine stores closed up, went out of business, but you just couldn't find them.
Just like newspapers. I think from the by the mid '90s you had new media, which was the internet, and by the late '90s, newspapers are closing up.
You still had a pretty huge magazine aisle at the Walgreens.
Yes,
there were no boxing magazines in the aisle.
They started disappearing. What I noticed, which just hurt me, is just those like outdoor newsstands. I used to love.
Oh yeah. And they got anybody
in New York City, and then right out of New York City, I cut my teeth in Massachusetts because I had done an internship as an undergrad at the Boston Globe. So I had contacts at the Boston Globe. I thought about writing there. I actually thought about tried out for the Providence Journal. So I was thinking maybe I would be a news reporter, a news writer in New England. So I cut my teeth on a paper in Quincy, Massachusetts called the Patriot Ledger. But they all had like these news.
I'm surprised I never bumped into you, man.
What was that?
I'm surprised I never bumped into you because all Providence, Boston, that's all the circles that I was hanging in. And one thing I did know, I noticed about Ring too, the quality of their magazines too. That they had thicker covers.
Yeah.
It was more laminated, just higher quality. And even
Oh,
like the
you
ones
talking about the new ones? You talking about the new ones?
no. The old 1985s, the 86s.
Yeah.
They just had better paper. I could
Yeah.
pull up just.
Oh yeah. Let me see the cover of that one. Oh yeah, I like that's like those special.
This was something else I was going to say. One thing about Ring. This is how I got my education on Joe Louis, Sugar Ray Robinson. They come out periodically. They'd have a special, like this was the Muhammad Ali special.
Yeah.
And you've got I don't know, maybe 80, 90 pages, and you just read them cover to cover to cover to cover. And
I would buy two of them. I would buy two. One I would just read and consume, and the other I would cut it up and I would put pictures, my favorite pictures. Like there was one that was the heavyweights, and it was like all of like the lineal heavyweights.
Yeah.
John L. Sullivan all the way up to whoever was champion in 1990, which was probably Buster Douglas or whatever. And it was the good paper, and it was all in color. And I was like, oh, perfect. And I would cut out pictures of Dempsey. I would cut out pictures of Joe Louis. I'd put them around my dorm room. And then they had like one on like rivalries. And so I remember cutting out pictures of this is when I'm in grad school, as a matter of fact, of Carmen Basilio, of the first fight, of him beating Ray Robinson, and then the rematch where he still held him he lost, but it was still a split decision. And he fought with like one eye for like 10 or 11 rounds. Like,
oh yeah, like a plum.
Right? Yeah. And they probably would have stopped the fight, right? Because it was totally closed by the fourth round. And I liked it because he was such an underdog. And in terms of like experience and athleticism and natural talent and height and reach and all, because Carmen was like 5'6". He was pint sized even for a welterweight. His determination, I use that as inspiration. Anytime, I'm staying up, night after night after night, because it was Columbia was rigorous. The journalism school was really rigorous. The professors were hard on you. It was very competitive, and I was real young too. I was like 22 years old, and most of the folks at grad school were like in their 30s, so they seemed like real adults to me, and I was real intimidated. And like anytime I felt overwhelmed or I felt like quitting or like I'm dropping out and I'm going back to Missouri or whatever, I'd take a look at that picture of Carmen Basilio with the eye closed. And it's him. It's like after the 15th round, he's just standing there. There's blood on his chest, and, despite being half blind and fighting, arguably the greatest fighter of all time, he got in that dude's ass for 15 rounds. He didn't give a fuck. He just like, no, I'm gonna stick my nose to the grindstone for as long as it lasts. And like anytime I felt that mental fatigue or that fear, that anxiety, whatever, I would have this inspiration. It wasn't just Carmen Basilio, but it was other great fighters, And I would I had them all over my dorm room, and I'm like, nope, I gotta fight, no matter what. And it's. So sometimes I would buy 2 or 3 magazines. One I'd save, one I'd read until it fall apart, and the other I cut it up. I cut it up and stick it up on the wall, stuff like that.
But man, I mean, every single magazine that came out, and every once in a while you'd find one. Where did this come from? You'd find a little hidden gem in there. But I mean, it was a religious thing, and those outdoor magazine stands. Those are guys. They'd get them before the indoor places would. We'd get it still in the bundle. The guy'd be cutting open the bundle. Oh yeah, there they are.
Yeah. When I would come around, they knew. They'd be like, "No, it's not here yet." I was in Boston. I was doing that internship with the Boston Globe when Tyson was upset by Buster Douglas, and I watched it live on HBO at a friend's house. And it's crazy because I'm taking the trains back home. I was staying in the Back Bay. And I think he lived in Cambridge, and I'm riding back, and I'm telling people Tyson just lost. Nobody believed me. They're like, "Get the fuck out of here!" I'm like, "No, he lost. I'm telling you, he lost." And it's different now. Like everybody would know on their phones and shit like that, And I'm like, no, it's like his heavyweight reign is over, and it's this dude from Columbus, Ohio, and I couldn't wait. I read about it in the papers the next day. And it's just not enough. I need the analysis. I need the historical perspective. So I would bug, the newsstand operators every day. Hey, when's Boxing Illustrated coming? When's The Ring coming? Well, what about KO? And they're like,
and that was another point too. We had to wait for 3 months from the fight till we got it in our hands in hard copy. Is that going to change? Is that going to change after the new age of the digital era? But I know that the hard copy era is coming back. Are you going to be able to get into our hands quicker than 3 months?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The first two that we've done, the December issue and the January issue, they've actually come out those months. It's been very hard. It's been hard on me and my staff to drill them out that quick. So for the issue that came out in December, and it was our December issue, our first issue back, we worked on that all during October, and then wrapped it up in early November, and then we had it out. It was getting in people's hands by I don't know, like probably around like Thanksgiving or whatever. Maybe those are the first copies that got out to everybody, but yeah, it was definitely out, and it was out there before the start of December. And then for this January issue, we had to have it finished before the awards ceremonies. So we had to have it done by it had to be printed by January 11, which we just barely did. Like literally boxes of it arrived in London on January 10th. That was tough because we only had December to work on that issue. And the printing companies closed down like Christmas Eve and on Christmas.
You're not gonna beat the internet. That's for damn sure. But people still want people
quicker though.
In their hands. People want this in their hands. People want something they can take in the shitter with them and sit down there for half hour.
Place to read it. The bathroom and airplanes, or on the trains. That's what I was reading.
Yeah. Oh man,
subway. The best. Yeah.
There were no phones back in the day. I was a salesman. I had the Ring magazine in my back pocket. If I had 20 minutes, I'd sit down and I educate myself. And that's the way that we did it. Now, what was I going to say next, man? My head is getting so full over here. I wanted to talk a little bit about what's happening right now in Riyadh with Turkey Al Sheikh.
Yeah.
It's everybody's looking forward to the card coming up on the 22nd.
Crazy.
And it's crazy, but I look at every card there, and they're great fights, but they're not like fights like Ali and Frazier, like Foreman and Norton.
It is, yeah. Well, because the fighters they don't have that stature. They don't have the same stature as the champions of the past.
You think it's going to change? You think it's going to be stagnant? You think with Turkey with all his dough with Ring Magazine, you think it's going to like maybe make some of these fighters superstars, make them bring us another Muhammad? There's not going to be any more Muhammad Ali's, obviously.
No.
Bring us somebody as popular as Jake Paul that can really box.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
I don't know. Maybe that fighter is out there and he or she is still an amateur or has just started their professional journey. I think what His Excellency and the Riyadh season funding can do is just elevate the sport, enhance it. Definitely in the UK where it's already pretty strong. But because it's a shorter trip from like Riyadh to like London, a lot shorter trip, and there's more business done between Saudi Arabia and the UK. So there's fighters out there that have been developed in a way where they have their home cities behind them. In England, you've got these fighters from Liverpool or Sheffield or Leeds or Nottingham, and they get get tied in with the football clubs in those areas, and they like this crossover, you know.
Yes. I mean, damn. Otto Wallin is fighting Derek Chisora, and I'm looking forward to that fight. You know, some people, it doesn't mean
Derek
anything.
is a character, man.
No, that's
I
that's
finally met him. This past week in London, dude. That guy, he should quit boxing. I know he's got another fight or two left in him, and that's fine.
yeah. None of these guys are gonna quit.
It's a reality show. You just follow that guy around. He is so charismatic. He's such a personality. He's so funny and legitimately fucking crazy. He's a wingnut, but he's got this energy. It's contagious. He's very fun to be around.
If you could meet somebody like 20 years younger, and you know, really build them up to the public, because like right now, man, you definitely have the tools. Ring Magazine, you're gonna be global. You're gonna be international. Everybody, that show on Saturday, every channel on YouTube was talking about that.
Yeah. No. The impressions and views that it got via social media, like it's in the billions. Like seriously, no exaggeration there. So that's all great. That's great for the Ring brand. That's great for boxing. I think what's going to happen is we'll get the fights, those, you know, with some exceptions. I don't know if Gervonta Davis is ever going to play ball, but we're going to get a lot of these fights that weren't otherwise going to happen. And so these fights are going to create excitement. But I don't know if we're going to get a superstar like an Oscar De La Hoya or a Mike Tyson. I don't know about that. I don't know if they're not fighting.
What do you think of this Moses? What do you think of this Moses Atamo, the Englishman?
You know what? Maybe. Okay, that's good. Remember I said like a guy just starting out. Moses is just starting out. He just turned 20. I like him. I like watching him. He's got some athleticism. He's got some agility. He moves around like a cruiserweight or a light heavyweight, but he's he's not a big modern sized heavyweight, but he's not a little guy either. I like him. He's fun. He's definitely turning heads over there in the UK. He won Prospect of the Year. And I thought for sure it was going to be Abdullah Mason because he's an American and he's fought on ESPN a bunch of times and he got a lot of votes. But Itama was right behind him, and after he blasted out that tall Australian guy,
Dempsey McKean.
Nobody
like that.
The other panel members voted for him, and he edged out Abdullah Mason, and I don't have a problem with that. He looks like a prospect. That's what a prospect's supposed to look like.
Absolutely.
So maybe he's in a glamour division. He's British. He's well spoken. He's not just British. I think he's got like some dual citizenship there. He's a mix.
He knocks people out, man. We all love a knockout artist. He knocks people out.
Yeah.
Hey, Doug, I had you for an hour already. You mind taking a few more questions before we play ball? Sure. Some people out there in the audience asked me if they could ask you some questions. So yeah, man, drop your questions out there, and we'll see what kind of an answer Mr. Doug Fischer gives you. But I mean, this has been so cool so far, man. It really has. Well,
it's about time. It's about time.
Well, this is what I can talk about. I hate these channels that come on and argue with each other about fights that aren't even going to happen. And I mean, it's like two rich guys arguing over who's got the best investments, and it's just not my thing. I like talking real boxing, and this is it, man. So please, man, I ask your questions only accepted via super chat. No, you can ask a question, man. If you want to give a super chat, I'm not gonna say no, but ask a question. Okay, what are your thoughts on the lineal and ring belt?
I think, I'm biased, but even before I was affiliated with the Ring, I like the Ring magazine title because the problem with the sanctioning bodies, and I'm not a sanctioning body hater, because I've seen how much fighters value the belt, their first belt, that first real world title that they win, that changes their lives. Like it validates a lifetime's worth of dedication and sacrifice. So there's no difference between that sanctioning body belt and like my high school diploma and my college degree and my master's degree from Columbia. It's just a piece of paper, but it has value to me because I had to work my ass off to earn those. And that's the same as the fighters. They got to bust their ass and they got to say no to a lot of things. And they got to put their health at risk to earn that. So it means something to them in that respect, but also it raises their it raises their income, right? It raises their earning potential. It's contractual. If a fighter is good enough to sign with the promotional company, there's certain minimums that they make fighting at the 4-round, 6-round, 8-round, 10-round level. And it's right there in the contract. If you win one of the 4 major sanctioning body belts, you get your minimum raises. So it increases their income and that's good. So it has value in that way. But I've been following the sport long enough to know that these guys, these sanctioning groups, they don't want to be unified. Like, I love it when we get a unified champion, but it's like 6 months later, one of them yanks the belt away.
Does Ring have a unification? Do they have a sanctioning fee?
What was that?
Do you have a sanctioning fee for your belt?
No, we don't charge anything. We don't charge them. We don't charge them for shipping the belt out to them. Like, we take on all that cost. Like I said, the ring championship, and if you're into the lineal thing, I'm not as into the lineal thing as some folks, because I know some folks who bark on and on. Well, he's the lineal champion. Then I'll say, okay, give me the lineal if that's so important for you. And they'll be like, oh, well, he beat so-and-so who beat so-and-so who beat, hang on, let me go to BoxRec real quick. I'm like, okay, man, Like, in the lineage, you can't have a lineage going all the way back anyways, because, some guys retire as champion and then it starts over again. And then it's splintered because of the belts. And then I don't think a lineage starts again until somebody becomes undisputed. Then
Ring used to be the number 1 and number 2 contender.
Yes, it's still that. It's to fill a vacancy. Yes,
and that was.
I like that. I like that purity, and I like just the fact that, it's like Nat Fleischer had intended. The belt is won and lost in the ring. It's not like we're going to strip you because you're not fighting. You're mandatory. And if we did have mandatories, the mandatory would be worthy, because just 9 out of 10 times when these guys, a belt is being stripped from a really good champion, that mandatory challenger is unproven. Like, we haven't even, like, us diehards haven't even heard of these guys. And we're like, how is that guy the mandatory? Well, we actually know how that guy got to the mandatory,
Yeah, this is why it's almost like this is going to be above reproach, because how can you bribe a billionaire?
Right. You can't bribe that guy. Yeah. And here's the thing. Here's the great thing about His Excellency. He's a hardcore fan.
Oh, I heard his first interview. He said his favorite boxers were Duran and Larry Holmes. The announcer said, was your favorite boxer Floyd Mayweather? And he just kind of gave one of his little.
He was like, please. Yeah, he was like, please. Yeah. I was like, thank you. I like that. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Another question. What fight do you want to see this year the most?
The aforementioned Gervonta Tank Davis, he's frustrating, but I actually do like watching the guy fight. He has his own charisma. I want to see him fight Shakur Stevenson. I think that's an all-American matchup that would be very interesting. Not necessarily a war either. I think it would be like a tactical bout, at least for the first half, and then it'll get real interesting as Tank looks to try to break Stevenson down and lower the boom. But I think it's difficult to break down Shakur Stevenson. His technique is so tight. His IQ is so high. He's so good at controlling the distance. To me, that would be a fascinating fight. It really would be. And I think that fight would be for the Ring Magazine lightweight title. That is, if Vasily Lomachenko retires, which he probably should. If he doesn't have the fire in his belly anymore, he might as well.
We always overlook Vasily Lomachenko, but then he always seems to come back and win a belt. It's like,
Yeah. No, he sticks around. He's a great fighter. I think, he's a future Hall of Famer, but if he doesn't feel it, if he's not motivated to do this, then let's let the young guns take over.
Okay. Doug, how do you feel? Do you feel that there's more honor back in the day? Example, talk about personal stuff online.
Oh, absolutely. There's absolutely more honor. And I'll give you an example. you had fighters that were the face of boxing, like Oscar De La Hoya, who, you know, like all fighters, you know, over a span of 15 or 20 years, you're going to have good camps. You're going to have bad camps. You're going to have personal drama that gets in the way of your training. And sometimes you're going to struggle to make weight. And I know for a fact, guys like, okay, I'll give you a real good example. Popular fighter, huge fan base, struggled to make weight every time. Fernando Vargas, right? You think if there was a guy, he'd say, I don't care, I'm not going to make weight. It was him. You know what I mean? Like, but he would make, even if a title wasn't on the line, it was so important for Fernando to make 154 because he really viewed junior middleweight as his division. He wanted to be the king of that 154-pound mountain. He would make the weight even if it killed him. And he had some subpar performances, or he had to really struggle physically against some really tough guys. I know he killed himself to make weight against Winky Wright, and he had to suck it up. Now you could say, well, he should have lost that fight, or he had to fight a draw. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, I know for a fact he killed himself to make 154, and he had to suck it up in the championship rounds of that fight to get that majority decision. And I know I'll tell you, here's another thing. When he fought Shane Mosley, not a world title on the line, but they had contracted it at 154. For that rematch, he had some kind of drama. And, you know, one of these days, if you ever interview Fernando, ask him about this. He went AWOL. He just like disappeared. He left camp and he was gone for like 2 weeks. Nobody could find Fernando or whatever. Yeah, I'm hearing about it from people in the know. And then they found him and he came back and he was heavy. And they were like maybe 2.5 weeks out from the fight or something like that. And they were like, how the hell are we going to do this? And they did it. You know, it had like the right dietitian and he, you know, the conditioning coach. Forget the guy's name, Robert something. Real good nutritionist and conditioning coach. Damn, shame on me for forgetting the brother's name, but they got him down to that weight. And I remember for that fight, he stepped on the scale, and he didn't know if he was going to make it either. They were losing weight like right down to the wire till it was time for him to get on that scale.
Not even his underwear on that scale.
He gets on the scale. And,
shaved and everything.
Fell out 154, and he lets out a primal scream. Ah! And I could tell, I was like, that was his fight right there. He's going to have nothing against Shane. Shane scored like a 6-round knockout. If Shane would have jumped on him in the first round, he could have had him out because everything he had was making that weight. And the thing is as great as Shane is, he was not he may have been like the house fighter because that was a Golden Boy Promotions main events co-promotion. Main events brought Fernando, and Golden Boy had Sugar Shane. Well, Golden Boy was in tighter with HBO at that time. Golden Boy had the Golden Boy, you know, Oscar De La Hoya, who, you know, even, you know, this was like, I think this was 2006. So Oscar was still around. He was still fighting, and he was actually coming back. He was going to fight Ricardo Mayorga, I think, later that year. So Golden Boy had a lot of leverage and influence with that network. So Shane might have been the house fighter, but the star was Fernando Vargas. You know,
Fernando, yeah.
He had the dedicated fan base. He could fight anywhere. He could fight in LA and they could sell out the Olympic Auditorium. He could fight in Chicago and they would get 15,000 at the United Center or whatever. He could fight different places. He could fight in any town in Texas and get a shit ton of fans. Like, he had that dedication. He was like a pro wrestler. You know what I mean? Like with his his charisma and all that.
He walks in the room and they're all running at him.
He would never miss that weight. He would never miss that weight, you know. And I guess, you know, the same thing for these guys like Eric Morales. I know he killed himself to make weight.
But today
they don't give a fuck
anymore. But I see how about today with the rehydration clauses. I didn't even know what that was until I started hearing about boxing. I'm saying, how the hell do they get these guys 15, 20 pounds heavier in 24 hours.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. But do you run across a lot of that in the game? Like
That
wait, they're calling them.
the rehydration, like the gaining weight after weight. I mean that's
Yeah.
something that's just the fighters, like they changed the rules from same day weigh-ins to previous day weigh-ins, and they said they did it, for the safety of the fighters, so they don't dehydrate themselves. But the problem is they began to take advantage of that. It's guys that weren't, they weren't naturally that weight class. They were able to drain themselves because they knew they had 24 hours or even 30 hours to rehydrate. The first time I heard about it, I'll tell you, it was the summer of 1990. And it was when this was a WBO title bout. So it was, the BO was still really new. And
Somebody didn't want to fight for the title.
yeah, it was Iran Barkley fighting Nigel Benn. Nigel Benn was actually the champion. Nigel Benn had beaten Doug DeWitt for the WBO belt, and it was on network television. I think it was on NBC.
Yeah.
Maybe, no, it was ABC. It was ABC because it was Alex Walu and Dan Deerdorf. That was the commentary duo. They were interesting duo, as a matter of fact. And Walu was complaining about it. He was saying that he didn't like the fact that Barkley weighed in at 160 and had rehydrated to like 171 or something like that, which isn't like a lot of weight. I mean, he was a middleweight. By today's standards, that's not even a lot.
Wow, that's what they expect.
Lightweights and junior welterweights like Devin Haney putting on 20 pounds.
Yeah, this is a mystery to me.
He put on 20 pounds. Shane Mosley did as well as a lightweight. He would sometimes put on as much as 20 pounds.
Man.
And they even boasted about it. They said, listen, he's a lightweight champion, but he's only a lightweight for about an hour or two.
All right.
Like they had a system of weight right up to the weigh-in.
A quick one from Steph Brown. Who are some of your favorite boxers, old and today?
Old would be Sugar Ray Robinson and Henry Armstrong. Carlos Ortiz is a favorite of mine. I like Ruben Oliveira. I like Roberto Duran, Carlos Monzon, Lupe Pintor. I'm a big fan of Salvador Sanchez, Wilfredo Gomez, and currently I like the monster. I like Naoya Inoue. I love Alexander Usyk. I think he's just a champion's champion. I like Terrence Crawford. There's some up and comers too. There's guys that are they're just like young budding contenders. Some of them are still prospects. I like Abdullah Mason. There's a guy who's a junior welterweight that my buddy Tom Loeffler promotes. His name is Kane Sandoval. He's from Sacramento. I love watching him fight. Tom's got a featherweight who's actually fighting this Friday named Omar Trinidad. I love watching this guy fight. He's just a badass.
One guy that I know his dad, Jaleel Hackett, who's coming back after a loss. We want to see how he comes back. It's very interesting, very talented.
What weight class is Jaleel?
I'm not sure. I think he's on 147.
Yeah, I like him.
He is. He's okay. The next question. Speaking of speaking of Monster Inoue versus Nakatani.
I love that fight. Arguably the biggest all Japan fight, in Japanese history. That'll be the one time you have like two Japanese fighters. They'd have to have it in Japan. It makes economic sense there, right? They probably fight at the Tokyo Dome. But I think there'll be fans in Britain and the U.S. just as hyped as the Japanese fans, tuning in at whatever hour it comes on. And I tell you what, I give Nakatani a real good chance in that fight. I would probably go with the monster if they were to fight this year, but I think Inoue has hit his ceiling, to be quite honest. And I also think that 122 is probably his ceiling as well, as far as weight classes. I think if he goes up to 126, he could probably still win a belt, but I don't think he'll be the dynamic powerhouse that he had been at 118 and 122. I think he'll be less dynamic, but I know the guy can he could box his ass off. But I think, like, if they fight in like 2026, I think I'm going with Junto.
Okay, what do you think of Canelo versus Crawford?
I think a big event. I think it's one of the bigger, the biggest bout between North Americans, the biggest North American fight that can be made. They could have it, it would fill the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, and they could charge crazy money, and it'd probably break records with the gate. It would do good pay-per-view sales. As a fight, I think it's interesting stylistically. I think Terrence Crawford can trouble anybody, but I got to be honest with you. If let's say Terrence Crawford stayed at 154, right? And he just said, it's my mission to become an undisputed champion at 154 pounds. I don't think he could do that and go undefeated. I think one of those young guns at junior middleweight would shock him. I don't know who it would be. I don't think there's a soft touch at all at junior middleweight. And I think he may have lost just a little bit of a step going from 147 to 154. And he may be getting to feel his age just a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. He's still an elite fighter. He still deserves to be viewed as like a top 3 pound-for-pound player. But I think he would struggle with middleweights. And I still look at Canelo Alvarez as the best super middleweight out there, even though he should have fought David Benavidez and didn't.
You think that fight's going to happen?
I don't. I think Canelo's looking at Benavidez the way Floyd Mayweather used to look at Antonio Margarito and think, oh, tall.
No, I mean Benavidez and Crawford. I'm sorry, Canelo and Crawford.
Canelo Crawford? Yeah, I do. I think it happens in September of this year. I'm going to go with Canelo by stoppage. I think late in the fight. But I think it's interesting. I don't think it'll be action. Action packed. I don't think it'll be like two guys playing chess, but I think it'll be Canelo kind of stepping forward with a lot of confidence because, let's face it, he's been in there with light heavyweights. He's sparred with cruiserweights and legit heavyweights like that. What's the guy's name? Frank Sanchez. He's been in there. He's been hit by big, strong guys. Like he had the confidence even. Being in there with a brilliant stick and move boxer like Dimitri Bivol. And Bivol put it on him a few times. And he was like, he just has this attitude like, no, you can't hurt me. You can't beat me. And he was legitimately outpointed. I thought he lost at least 9-10 rounds in that fight.
Oh, yeah.
It wouldn't have been as close as the official scorecards. But I get judges, they recognize boxing and they recognize that he's the money man. But also, he just has this confidence, like when he's in there, like he has this ring command where he's like, you can't fuck with me. You know what I mean? And I think being in there with a naturally smaller guy, he's just going to be like, yeah, you're fast, you're versatile, you're switch hitting, but you're a mosquito. You know what I mean? Like you can't hurt me. And these punches are going to move you. You're going to, even if you cover, even if you block, these punches are going to move you. You're going to feel it. And eventually one of them's going to get through. It might be high on the head. It might be to the chest. It might be, but whatever. It's going to.
But Bud's never felt that kind of power before.
Never. No.
And
here's the thing. Canelo's feet are a little bit slower. They were never fast, but his feet are a little bit slower. He's not punching in combination, but he's still got good timing. He's still got decent hand speed. Like that left hook that dropped Berlanga. That was crisp. That was just like he saw it. It was like, oh, there it is. Boom. And Berlanga, who was probably like 190 pounds, he wasn't badly hurt, but it put him on the seat of his pants. And that's a big dude. You know what I mean? Like, and
no.
Crawford, that same punch is going to hurt Crawford.
How about your thoughts on David Morrell, David Benavidez fight?
I love this. That to me is a 50-50 fight. I think Morrell is the better natural talent. I think he's the better athlete. I think he's the more versatile boxer. I like that athletic boxer puncher style that he has. But Benavidez is a really good pressure fighter. I think he has some underrated craft. I think he's the more seasoned of the two. He's been a pro a lot longer. He's faced of the higher quality of opposition, and he's a volume puncher. And I think pressure and volume if it doesn't break down a boxer, it stresses out a boxer, and sometimes can overwhelm a boxer to where they don't fight at 100%. So I think Benavidez has a real good chance of outpointing him if he can't hurt him. If he can hurt him, maybe he stops him late. I've never seen Morrell hurt before, though, so I don't know. I don't know how good Morrell's chin is because he's faced some decent fighters, but I haven't seen Morrell in against like some really like high level contenders at super middleweight or at light heavyweight. He looked human though in his last fight against Hot Rod. He didn't look great. He looked good, but he didn't look like an elite fighter. So
this is why we want to see it, man. You know, when you say 50-50 fight,
I view it as 50-50.
How about Devin versus Teofimo?
I like that. I think Devin, if it's not Shakur Stevenson, I think Devin has the best jab out of these young guns from 135 to 140. He looks good. His weight is down. He's training. Like I said, I interviewed him in London last week, and it seems like his head's in a good place. Seems like he's got his confidence. But Teofimo is also one of these guys. He fights down to the level of his competition, but he also fights up to his level of competition. And when he's fighting a name, somebody that he goes back with in the amateurs, you know what? Teofimo was in really good spirits in London as well. He sounded good. He looked good too. He looked like he was I asked him, I think he's just like maybe 10 pounds over the 140. Maybe he's like 150, 151. So
he turned down the fight with Liam Paro, though. That's people.
No, it was Matthias, right?
Yeah, Matthias. Sorry.
Yeah, I think he doesn't view that guy as a name. Like he can't get up for a guy like that. I do think he would get up for Devin though. That would be a title unification bout. That would be the Ring Magazine champion against the Ring's #1 rated junior welterweight. And I think if Devin could keep Teofimo at the end of his jab, he will have success. He can't get too greedy though, because Teo is real twitchy. He's a natural counter puncher. Does he have the pop at 140 to hurt Haney the way Ryan Garcia did? I don't know, because Ryan's huge. I think Ryan could mature into a middleweight. That's when I look at Ryan and I look at his frame. I see a middleweight. I see somebody who could fight comfortably at 147 or even 154. So Ryan didn't boil himself down to 140, and he had the banned substance in his system. I don't know if that's a real performance enhancer, that Austrian, or if it just it's a diuretic and it makes you lose weight or whatever. But it wasn't an even playing field. So I don't want to say that Devin's chinny because Ryan hurt him. Ryan wasn't able to finish him, but I know Ryan with that left hook. That left hook was so fast, and Ryan is such a big kid that I think he can hurt anybody with that shot. So I don't know if Teo could do the same, but Teo is I think Teo is a better talent and a better technician than Ryan is. I'll put it that way. He's not as big and rangy as Ryan Garcia is, but he is a better natural talent, which is saying something. And I do think his technique is a lot better than Ryan's, and I do think he's a natural counter puncher. So it's a very interesting fight. I don't have a favorite in that matchup at all. I think that's like Morrell Benavidez. I think it's a 50-50 matchup.
And let me shout out to Swad Jones. Stopped in here, my brother. Shoeshine Boxing. Appreciate you in here, man. Let me see. Let me go through here, see if there's any more questions on here. Ryan Garcia is looking pretty good right now. He's going to finish his suspension in April.
Yeah.
That rematch is must-see TV. Everybody wants to see that fight.
Yeah. The controversy, I think, maybe sells it more than the fight did, because honestly, I didn't think the fight – take away the knockdowns. That was the exciting part of the fight. But it was also frustrating because Ryan had him hurt in the opening round and he couldn't finish him. Like he would land that money punch, and then his follow-up to me was sloppy. Like his footwork and cutting off the distance, and then his judge of distance, like he couldn't get the right distance and the right punches for the follow-up to take Haney out, who was, visibly shaken, who was actually hurt. He had cobwebs. And that fight to me was frustrating because I was like, maybe a lot of those shenanigans was just Ryan just kind of his way of promoting the fight or throwing up subterfuge or trying to psych Devin Haney out or make Devin Haney think that he wasn't serious or that he was going to pull out of the fight or whatever to shake Devin Haney's focus, and maybe he was successful. But I also think it affected his own focus. I don't think he was 100% focused in that camp. And it's frustrating because you wonder, like, what if you took this fight seriously and you weren't, splitting your time between camp and social media? Maybe you could have got a sensational knockout. Maybe you would have made weight.
That's $1 million a pound. He paid for that weight. Isn't that ridiculous?
That's why that previous question, was did fighters of yesteryear take it more seriously? Absolutely. They were getting paid a fraction. They would never give up money for missing weight because they wouldn't miss weight. They just, and you didn't have to threaten them with a fine. Just their pride made them make weight. Like, no, this is my weight class. This is contracted. I have to make the weight. It's frustrating to me. But we're gonna have whatever. Controversy sells.
Absolutely.
Ryan has a great following, and Devin Haney is known. So there'll be a lot of eyeballs on that fight. If and when it happens. And I think it probably does sometime, maybe in May. Maybe like mid-May.
Well, I don't know, man. I don't know I think Haney needs a tune-up before this fight. And
so do I.
He wanted to do that exhibition in Japan. That fell through, I guess, or did it happen?
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. Garcia claimed that he got an injury, so that exhibition didn't happen. And Devin Haney just sat out all the rest of 2024, and I don't think he should have done that. I think he should have had like a rust-shaking fight, a confidence-building fight, like by the end of the year, like October, November, December.
Well, I mean, let's hope he's on one of these.
They want to get paid a certain amount of money, no matter what, and that's also different from yesteryears. You got a guy like, Shane Mosley or James Toney that might make high six figures or even seven figures on HBO one month, and then to stay busy, they're fighting on basic cable, a month or two later, and they had to take a haircut for that fight. They're not making crazy money for that fight, but they also they're increasing their visibility. They're getting out there again. They're having another camp. They're learning
what fighters do, man. Fighters fight.
Yeah.
Firemen put out fires. Cops arrest people. Fighters fight, man.
Writers fight. Yeah. Editors edit.
Hey, Doug, it's been an hour and a half, bro. I took up enough of your time. I want to do it again soon, bro. It's been my pleasure, bro. I'm so grateful for you coming in here and talking with me and my peeps out here, bro.
It's been a lot of fun. Have me again.
Absolutely, bro. And there's another guy that I want to mention, a historian out here. This guy's from the UK. His name is Scrapbook Boxing. So
okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna drop you these.
Yeah, okay. If I don't already follow him, then I will.
And I'm gonna hook you up with Terrible Tim also.
Oh, please do.
Absolutely. All right, brother. So thanks all you cats for coming in here, man. Doug Fischer, editor-in-chief of Ring Magazine, humbling Bruce Gass over here with some great stuff, and all you cats, man. Thank you for coming in here, man. I'm out of here. Peace.